Well, hello, Janine. It's nice to have you on the podcast, especially because I'm a big fan of your magazines and books. So getting to know you is really fun.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
So you said that this is the first time recording from your new studio. Tell me about your new studio because I'm a little bit jealous.
Well, Uppercase has been around for a long time now. This is my 18th year as Uppercase. The magazine and such started a bit later, but as Uppercase as an entity began in 2005-ish. And I've been renting various places for all those years. And just this past summer, I was able to get my own place, be my own landlord, have my own studio. I can do whatever I want in. And so
I love
here
that.
we are. And it had some beautiful bookcases built in. It's a house converted to an office from 1907. So it's really nice.
What city are you in?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Canada. I thought you were in Canada. That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love the way it looks, and I love all the magazines and books behind you. So for anyone who's watching on YouTube, they'll get a chance to see how beautiful that is. I put a couple of, they're a little bit blurry in my video, but I put a couple of the books from when I was published in one of your special editions when we were working on art supplies. So I thought, how fun would it be to get you on the podcast, get to know you better, and just kind of hear your story? Because part of what I love doing with the Made Remarkable podcast is we focus kind of on creative entrepreneurs, all the different pathways we can take. So you say that you've been Uppercase officially for like 18 years. So I would love to hear how you became Uppercase and how you turned it into a magazine.
Sure. Before Uppercase, I did graphic design for arts and culture clients. So I did freelance graphic design for about 12 years. So that's my kind of professional background. So I did lots of design for like Calgary Opera and theater and arts festivals and small publishers. And I worked on another magazine as an art director. So that's where I kind of got my wet my feet into the world of graphic design and art, and got to hone my skills as a graphic designer. And then in 2005, the opportunity came about that there was a building in downtown Calgary called Art Central. And it was going to be a 3-level, like an old building that was retrofitted to be various artist studios on the 3 levels. And I'd been working out of my home for all that time. And I just like, oh, I want to get out. I want to do something. I want to be out in the world. Like I don't want my entire career to be in my little room off the kitchen.
I relate to that right now.
Yeah. So I decided to take the leap and rent a space. And part of the mandate of this Art Central was that you need to be public. Like you couldn't just have an office and be there. You had to have, like, it was open to people to come in. So that's where Uppercase Gallery Books and Paper Goods came about. So I had my design studio in the back, and in the front was a gallery space and a beautiful bookshelf and just shelves for me to like be a public facing creative entity. So the concept was, it was like, you know, graphic design, commercial art, illustration. Those were the sorts of gallery exhibitions that I was curating. Then I designed my own reading cards and I sewed products, and I had other people's publications for sale in the bookstore area, but I dreamed that, you know, someday Uppercase was going to have its own books there as well. So I hosted workshops. We made books by hand. We did button making. We did all sorts of things. And then so I did that for about 8 years or so. And then that building, unfortunately, it was sold, and new management just wasn't interested in the concept, and people left, and then the whole thing was torn down. So, so I moved to a different office, and I was there happily for about 10 years, no public retail anymore, but just concentrating on Uppercase publishing. So publishing my quarterly magazine and various books. And then that lease was coming up, and I just didn't really feel like continuing to, invest in other people's properties. And I decided it was time to get my own place. So now I'm here.
Here you are.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more than a decade ago then that you switched over to creating the magazine for yourself?
Yeah, so it sort of coincides with becoming a mom. So my son is 13 now. The magazine is 14. So
Gotcha.
that timing worked out pretty well to launch the magazine first, then have a baby, and then continue, growing the business. So yeah, when Finley was born, it was clear I couldn't do, a gallery and a magazine, and I couldn't do client work and all these other things. So I happily retired from doing graphic design for clients. That was the first thing to go. And then when this Art Central, fizzled out, I was happy to just let go of retail at that time. And yeah, just concentrate on the magazine baby and the real baby.
And the real baby. And so did you say your kid's name is Finley?
Yes,
I have a Finley as
you
well.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. So funny. And he's now 15. So
Oh, okay. Well, Finleys are amazing.
yes. So that's really cool. And I think personally, from my experience of being a mom, starting it before you're a mom probably is helpful because once you're in the throes of it, it's like, okay, now how do I start something now that I know how challenging it is being a parent? Did you find it hard to juggle this new entity at the same time?
Uh, well, yes, and I'm glad I started the magazine first. But when, the first few years of being a mom, like, there's lots of nap time and
Yeah.
it's useful the first few months, I could just put him down and he would stay there and I could
Yeah.
do some work and such. And we got into a routine, and right from the very beginning, I always knew that my child was going to be fully aware of what I was doing, right? Like, that I'm the, the sole earner in the family, and these things are important and these are things I have to do, and my child can help me, sometimes by just being quiet for a bit, or we can juggle our time and make things work for us. But and my husband was a stay-at-home dad, for the first year, so that
That's
was useful. And
awesome.
then he actually got let go from his job, so he just stayed home and that was fine. So we've always uppercase and family and taking care of each other is all sort of like, wrapped up together. There's not a lot of separation. And so that's how we managed. Yeah, I think we just always made it work because there was no other choice but to make it work.
I love it though. I know my husband has always said he wishes that the roles could have reversed so that he could be a stay-at-home dad, which is kind of funny because he definitely has the alpha male personality, but there's always a part of him who's like, well, and he is glad that I have a career that's successful, so the pressure isn't all on him anymore. But I love that we're shifting how that looks for families and for, dynamics of the gender roles that we're expected to play. So I love that you continued to make this business thrive and I'm the same way. I love letting my sons know, like, I'm working now. I was a stay-at-home mom, but I'm working now.
Mhm.
And so there are times where I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to make more time for the kids. And is it wrong that I'm working while they're here and they're present? And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, my husband never says, I'm so sorry I have to work. Right. So there are some big mental shifts too, as we're coming into this new century of all the roles are changing, all of the possibilities are there, and what it means to be a mom or a dad or a family or business or whatever it is. I love seeing it change and shift, however it is that we want to make it happen.
Yeah, I think like right from the get-go, like I knew I wasn't going to stop doing my creative pursuits in my business just because I was going to be a mom. Like it was, these are the two things that I'm going to be doing, and they can coexist quite well together. I have the flexibility of changing my daily schedule, so
Mhm.
that's always been useful. And I homeschool Finley now. We've been, we're going into grade 8 together coming up, right? And I've been able to like bring that into my daily schedule, and we work together to make sure that we're both able to get what we need to get done. So yeah, I think being flexible and not worrying about whatever, like, the norms are, just do what
Right.
works for you. And the idea of mom guilt, I never, like, that's something just terrible. Like there should be no feeling of feeling guilty just because you have to get some work done and you're not 100% with your child all the time. Like
Right,
that
exactly.
notion is just ridiculous. So
It is.
yeah, I've always known that when I'm working, I'm working like I'm at my full capacity, and I'm doing my very best to make sure that the time that I am spent working is well spent. I'm not going to waste my work time.
That's
So
good. I do need a little more discipline in that area, but you have very specific deadlines to meet every
mhm.
quarter for your magazine. So, what was it about publishing and creating magazines that you were really drawn to?
Well, that goes back way back into my childhood because I always loved books, and I
Yes.
I used to I used to make little pretend books when I was a kid, and I used to make little magazines, and they were like really small with paper that I got from my mom, like discarded from her office and stuff. And my dad was a drafts person, so I had lots of like blueprints and things. So I had all these paper, and I would cut them up, and one side would have whatever thing from my parent on the back, and then the other side was for me to to write and draw on. So I always loved making little books. And then, as I mentioned, professionally, I did graphic design for other publications, and seeing how and like other magazines were operating was like, oh, someday I'd like to I like to do it myself, right? And to be in charge of the content and get to decide, all aspects of what's part of this design project that I'm working on. So yeah, I think it goes way back as a kid. I always loved making magazines. And as far as deciding to do my own magazine, part of it was thinking ahead, like to have something that has predictability with the schedule. And there's a lot of accountability when you have like all these subscribers and they expect it to be out at a certain time. And so that really is motivating for me to have that structure right like built into the business, that I just have to do it. There's no debate about whether I can do it now or later. I just got to do it now.
Do you get help to do it now?
I have a roster of amazing contributors. We're all like virtual. So like a beautiful list of people who contribute to the magazine frequently. And my copy editor, Corey Baldwin, is in Montreal. And so he's like the eagle eye who looks at absolutely everything, for grammar and copy editing. And he also has written a few of the books. So the Rag and Pulp book about paper and creativity, he wrote that one. So yeah, Corey's a good part of the team. But there's the day-to-day stuff is me, customer service, managing logistics, laying out the
do all of the like graphic design and layouts of the magazine too?
Yeah. Well, that's why I
Wow.
started a magazine, because I wanted to design it myself. So
Do you do all the outreach then for the artists that participate?
yep, that's my job as editor, is to compile, curate, and conceptualize each magazine.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love it. I am a big fan of magazines as well. I don't feel like your books are exactly magazines though. The Uppercase it's a book in the mail every quarter.
Well, I pack a lot in there, I have to say.
Yeah.
I kind of think of them, it's an ongoing conversation, because when you have the topic of, it's for the creative and curious is my tagline, and that's so broad, but really there's so much creativity in the world. So having it as like a quarterly look at a small little section of creativity, or come up with a theme so I can kind of corral all the ideas together into one issue. That's a fun challenge. And I think sort of that's part of the longevity of the magazine, is because there's this infinite well of creativity out there that we can all draw upon. And so my job is to kind of focus our attention on a small little aspect of it every few months.
Yeah, that infinite wealth of creativity and tapping into that. I was having a moment where I'm like, are you going to run out of ideas one day? Like, have you covered every subject? And then I realized creativity is always changing, evolving. There's always new voices. There's, voices of the past that we could tap into. I feel like you're right. There's like, it's limitless really how much you can do with focusing on creativity. So, and now the current book you have out, I'm going to have to get a copy of it because paper is my absolute favorite material in the whole wide world. So I must have missed the memo. Thank you for the emails that go into the wrong folder. But I love the Uppercase magazine, but your editions. Tell me a little bit about how like you came up with this idea for another wing, if you will, of the brand.
Sure. So Uppercase started publishing a few books first, because like when I had the gallery, I was curating all these shows, and so I did some exhibition books sort of thematically, and then I did a few other books about illustration and design prior to launching the magazine. But the one we're talking about, the Uppercase Encyclopedia of Inspiration, and so this is I call it well, it comes out in whimsical non-alphabetical order, and I plan on eventually doing 26 books, one for each letter. Yes. I started with letter F, which was a book about feed sacks, which are vintage fabrics that used to, they're beautifully patterned and decorated, and they used to sell chicken feed and farm feed and flour and sugar and stuff in cloth bags, and they're beautifully decorated. And Lindsay Cull-McRae was the author of that book. So the concept of an encyclopedia began thinking about this book about vintage things and feed sacks. And then I had some other book ideas that I wanted to do about printmaking and ephemera, and like just a large topics of books that I'd like to do at some point. And I thought, well, how can I bring those all together as like, what can I do to conceptually bring all these disparate ideas together? And I came up with the idea of an encyclopedia, because like that's sort of like a vintage thing in itself. When you think about, there used to be like door-to-door encyclopedia salespeople that would try and sell you recurring books about absolutely every topic. So I decided to create my own encyclopedia, and that helps with the design and format of each of the book has like a similar feel with a belly band and a decorative dust jacket. And they're hefty books. They're always like typically 448 pages, and so they're hefty, like encyclopedia-like books.
Yeah.
And they can't be
They're no
confused with a
small thing.
magazine, right? Like they're big.
They
So
are
yeah,
gorgeous though. And
yeah.
one thing I noticed about it is they're very readable. Like a lot of times I get magazines or books and I just skim through the photos, but I actually sat down with my copy of the art supply book and read all the articles because they flowed like stories, like information, like insights into the artists rather than do this and do this and do this, which I'm kind of like over like the, how to or, instructional kind of dictation. I love the way that the artists are presented in the magazines and books, sorry, and the encyclopedias.
Yeah. Well, in the encyclopedias, that's on purpose. Like, and even the magazine, I've never been like, it's not a how to, right? Like
Right.
with the internet, Pinterest, YouTube, whatever, you can find out how to do anything in an instant, right?
Yeah.
But what I focus on is inspiration. And that's more nebulous. And that's sort of got a secret sauce to like inspire other people.
Right.
So I think that's the strong suit for these books and the magazine is it actually helps provide people with some motivation and inspiration. And I think that's true, like beautiful imagery, the people who are profiled talking about their process and their inspiration and kind of like these serendipitous moments of things together and the kind of the curating of different ideas that have a little similar thread, which can spark someone's imagination. That's what I like to do with my publications. And so that's the ultimate goal of the Encyclopedia of Inspiration is not to tell you how to do something or how to copy someone else. It's how to look at something and feel inspired and go make your own thing. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
That's probably why it resonates with me so much. And I think a lot of artists love it for that, or creatives, because you're not just targeting, artists or painters or 2D artists. Like it's all different kinds of creativity. And I get that. But I find the joy in other books or magazines about art is just to take the little pieces that spark something in me and then run with it on my own. And that's really what Uppercase provides.
Mm-hmm. And I'm inspired by people who are just so passionate and so talented in their area of whatever area that might be. I find that
Yeah.
really invigorating to just kind of be in the vicinity, even if it's through print, where you're in the vicinity of someone who is just like really honed in on their skills and identified what they love, and they're just doing it in like the best possible way. That's really inspiring.
Right. When you look at their work and you can immediately identify the thread of the body of work that they've done, like there's definitely like a voice or a point of view that's coming across, and then it gets really exciting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, like, what are the challenges or hurdles of publishing? I mean, this isn't a small feat. I've thought about it in the past, like, wouldn't it be fun if I could print my own, whatever? Like, I've had those ideas. I have a million ideas because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So, but there's a sensibility of me. It's like you can only do so much, but you picked your thing in publishing, and it is a really wide loved magazine now. But tell me about some of the challenges around it, like, especially as there's this ebb and flow of popularity of magazines.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started it when 2009, when the first issue came out. I started the magazine then because a lot of magazines that I loved were just disappearing. They weren't being published anymore. And that like 2007, 2008, 2009, a lot of magazines were just shutting down. Like Blueprint magazine from Martha Stewart Living. And there was Domino magazine, like the very first iteration of that magazine. And there's some other ones that I enjoyed reading that were all just calling it quits because of their advertising revenue at the time. Like they were relying on ads and ad sales, and they apparently couldn't make it work. So when I started my magazine, it was like, I want to make a magazine because there's nothing for me to read anymore. And I, as a graphic designer, I always had like, it's a bit of a vanity project to make my own magazine, right? Like you want to see your own vision come to life. But also I wanted to create a magazine that was supported by its readers, not relying on any sort of advertising or any other influence. So that was right from the beginning that it was going to be supported by its readership. So I stick to that still. And it was really tough in the beginning because printing stuff on paper and mailing it is really expensive. So for the first 7 years, I was just barely getting by.
Wow.
I had a $50,000 line of credit. And so I would use that for my print bill, and then people would subscribe, and I'd work my way back to zero, and then another print bill. I used my so I was existing like that for a really long time, and a lot longer than probably anyone really should, because I'm just stubborn. But I just kept going, and then I took Marie Forleo's B School in 2014, and that totally changed everything. I realized what I was doing wrong and what I needed to change with my marketing communication. And I did like a big reboot of my business. I let people go and just went back to just being me. Yeah, I rebuilt it, and it's been a profitable business ever since. There's such a difference between operating in the negatives all the time and having a company that can actually, grow.
I love that. Really important part about entrepreneurship, about having a business, is for whatever reason, and even with our art and our creativity, for some reason we all think that we're going to just do this on our own and we don't need help. But look at what a change that is for you once you got more training and understanding from B School, of how, to get the word out there, to market it, to show up, and that it changed your business. And that's pretty cool. I know that the more training and the more I've invested in my business, the better I've gotten at it as well. What was like the biggest shift for you besides like just restructuring? But did you have a different way of being able to show up after that, or find the clients, or not clients, but customers?
I think when I had people working with me, and I had like they're lovely people, and it was really horrible to have to let people go. That was awful. But they were, there was someone for marketing, and then I had someone to do subscription management and customer service, and then I had an editorial intern, and so that was as big as it got, was three other people, and they had their areas of expertise, but I guess I relied on their expertise that would keep us going. Like someone who has a degree in marketing, surely they know how to do marketing for my business then, right? Like they're trained,
Yeah.
so they should be able
Okay.
to do it for me. And I have zero, I went to art school, and there was no business training in art school whatsoever. And then I just learned by being a freelance graphic designer. So my mistake was just thinking that people they would be able to do what they need to do for my particular company. When I took B School, I realized how specific you need to get, with your marketing communications, and that the stuff we were doing for Uppercase was too generic, and it wasn't like really resonating, and it wasn't really authentic to what I was trying to do. So when I did the big, hard reboot, the first thing I did was start over with my communications and send out a regular newsletter and just be forthright with what I was going through and just like build from there. So sending out my newsletter every Tuesday, that's been the biggest thing that changed things around. And it comes from me, and it talks about what I'm doing and the good and the bad. And it involves my readers in a way that makes them feel like they're part of it, because Uppercase is, hugely supported, like entirely supported by people who subscribe to the magazine and people who submit their work. And it's integral that I have that great relationship with my readers. And that started, from realizing I need to do that when I took B School way back when.
So maybe prior to that moment where you made a big shift, it was a publishing company that, like, there's this wall between you and the product, maybe that it becomes impersonal. And when you have ownership and you're showing up and you're communicating every day with the people who are there buying your, I mean, like, that's what people want now more than anything, is they want the person, they want the personal touch. That, I think we're really past the, no, I'm not saying you're not professional, I'm just that corporatization of a brand.
Yeah, I think like when I had other people working with me, I thought like this is what it's supposed to be like. If I have a magazine, you have someone doing this thing and you have someone doing that thing, and you're in a space together and you work together, and that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And the marketing that we did, if I think back to it, like I was doing some of my own writing in there, but we were also doing things like, here's Mother's Day special, and here's Christmas, and here like these sort of like seasonal things that generally anyone would do for like marketing 101, but it really
Right.
was kind of useless for for my particular business. So yeah, I guess I just learned a lot. I didn't know anything about marketing before than what I had observed, through doing materials for my clients. So taking a course specifically about marketing and communications in business was, it was life changing. It really changed the trajectory of my business. It kept it afloat, and then it made it into a profitable business. So yes.
Oh, I love that so much, because that's what I teach. I love marketing. I love messaging. I love communications. I love how we can infuse ourselves into our business and connect more deeply with our customer. And that's what I've been teaching all of my my members of my coaching program. And it's like such a huge shift in the mindset of marketing isn't like some sterile making some graphic. Marketing is our message and how we communicate with people. And that just like it's revolutionary. And of course, I think at this point, uppercase is like a staple in most artists' life because it is so prominent and prevalent in so many different areas. Like you said, you cover so many different topics, but it doesn't matter what the subject is in that magazine. Like I feel the personal touch now. And so I can see how that's making a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, marketing is like creative outlet, just like that's how I think of it, as one aspect of the creative outlet that I have. And I have this business and I enjoy it. And I really enjoy writing now. Like I didn't realize that I wanted to be a writer until I started writing on a regular basis. And I really enjoy writing and sharing what I'm going through and what I know. So that's terrific. Especially excellent skill to have when you publish books and magazines, right?
Yeah.
Because I can write my own stuff. So that's one aspect of marketing that I absolutely love. And I think it's a way of also honing in what you're trying to do with your own business. Like when you're communicating with your customers on a regular basis, you can start to almost direct yourself like, oh, you know what, I want to go in this direction. And so I'm going to tell people that I'm going to start to do, this particular project or this thing, or I'm going to experiment with something. And then you get this like a feedback of encouragement and support, and that's good momentum. It keeps you motivated. And then, when it results in people subscribing to my magazine or buying my books, that's amazing because like I can't afford to just print them for fun, right?
Right.
So,
And the cost of print goes down the more people you have purchasing in a subscription. Yeah.
Yeah, the per unit cost when you have a
Yeah.
print run, the larger the print run, you can lower the per unit cost. But then there's things like postage goes up and paper cost goes up and everything like that. So you mentioned how like you see uppercase in lots of places, and that's amazing, but it's really still a very, very small magazine in the grand scheme of, of magazines. Like you can't go out to like a Barnes and Noble or something.
Right.
And find uppercase. You have to go online or to some very small list of stockists in the United States, for example, who will have the magazine. But I try to be in the community as virtually as I can, right? And
yeah, that's what I really meant. Like when I see it everywhere, I mean, I see it everywhere, people talking about it online. I don't think I go into stores anymore. I order everything online. So how convenient. But yeah, I just because you have so many people from the creative community participating, and that in and of itself means that you have marketers naturally built into the program.
Yes, and that was just a lucky accident because I didn't think of that. But I started having open calls for the magazine because like when you have, a particular theme, I thought, oh, it'd be nice to get other people's interpretation of the theme in addition to what I'm curating for the magazine. So I started having open calls for participation, and that just continued to grow. And so I've like added more pages to the magazine so that I can include more of the readers, because like the more that I can reflect back who's reading the magazine and support that community, then the better we all are. And that is like, unplanned, but now it's a good thing is that people who are in the magazine like to share that they're in the magazine, and then
Of course,
friends and family are interested in it, and then it helps it grow. So
very much so a big deal to be in one of your books or magazines, which was such an honor for me too, to be able to be in one of them. How many editions of Uppercase are there now?
I'm on issue 59 of the magazine. 59. And I'm working on on the 12th volume of the encyclopedia.
Well, so you're not quite halfway through.
No,
but you're getting there.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with the letter X though? I really have to know.
I don't have a plan for every single issue yet. Volume. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, that was just kind of like a funny thought I had there. Like I could probably imagine everything else, but an X is going to be an interesting challenge. But
yeah, I'll have to check. I've got it in my database. I've got like brainstorming ideas in there.
yeah. How much have you seen shift and change in our creativity over the last, like since you've been publishing Uppercase? Or do you feel like it's a lot the same that it's always been, or do you see new trends coming and going quite rapidly?
I think more people are trying to pursue creativity in their lives. That's what I've seen. That more people who have like a supposed non-creative job are trying to be creative in their personal time. I think that's definitely grown. And then during the early years of the pandemic, when more people had time, to explore things other than being at their offices and out and about, that there was a reconnection to craft, and making things, and mending and handwork and that sort of thing. So I hope that continues, because we can all use that. That's just good for our souls.
For sure. Okay, so there's a growing need for creativity, which is good news because I feel like that's really like the pure expression of humanity is whatever we can create, how we're using our imagination. So that's good to see. Do you know your type of reader? Like, I'm assuming that it's not just all artists, that it may be newly budding creatives as well.
Yes, there's a wide range of readers, and but I think they're more skewing to people over 35 years of age. But I haven't done like a whatever survey that asks people that sort of stuff. That's not my style. I don't really need to know. I just get to know my readers through what they email me, and our conversations that we have that way, and the submissions that I receive, and looking at people's Instagram and stuff. Like, that's how I get to know who my readers are, not really by demographics. But I think typically the people who submit are people who have um, reconnected with their creativity more recently, or they're trying to shift careers a little bit. And then some are professional artisans and creatives who have been doing this for a while. So there's a variety of people. When I first started out back in 2009, I thought it would be more of a younger, like more like me at the time, I guess. But it's always been a little bit older than me, which is fine. And now I'm probably the more of the average age of my readers. So that's good.
I see creativity shifting in different areas for all ages too. So hopefully, even those who are like young, newly out of the school scene and into the like boring old adulting scene are now able to like reconnect with their creativity maybe that they had when they were kids. I always I'm hopeful that that part isn't lost. Just like you, like to see that growing surgency is really inspiring to me, especially when I'm like around my kids' friends and they're like, yeah, I'm learning this, crocheting or paper craft, or I want to learn how to paint. So I'm always like hopeful that it will continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do understand, like, I don't know that it's the demographic of age or race or location that's important, but it's more like the interest, what people are interested in right now.
Yes. Well, and there's some people who don't understand uppercase at all, and that's fine. It's not a magazine for them. Um, like, if they're too literal about, I'm only interested in quilting, or I'm only interested in rug hooking, and like I'm only
Right.
interested in this kind of like hand built ceramics and not that kind of ceramics. Like, that doesn't work. Like, that's not what my magazine is about. My magazine is about looking at things that are outside of your typical area of creativity to get inspiration and motivation, right? It's about connecting. Like, if I'm a quilter and I'm looking at a ceramicist, what can I learn from looking at ceramics that can inform my quilt making, and vice versa, right? So maybe it's how you make a mark on a ceramic piece. Can you make a mark like that in your quilting, right? Or can you apply quilting motifs of pattern decoration onto your ceramics? Like, those are the sorts of things I want people to think about when they're looking at my publications, is like, what can I learn from something that's slightly outside of my usual comfort zone?
That is exactly how I use your magazine.
Excellent.
Because for me, if I'm looking at all the same type of art, it's too close and literal to what I'm doing. So the only way for me to really gather inspiration is to see creativity out of my own personal genre. So I've been personally, I love jelly plate printing and patterns, and I've been working on new collage ideas. Like my work is evolving behind the scenes, not publicly. I haven't really been sharing a lot of that. So where am I turning? I am literally seeing ways that people are doing pottery, quilting, surface pattern design. Like, I am looking at all these different ways that people make art that's so different from me, but it's all inspiring and informing my next move. Jewelry making, hand painted like objects instead of surfaces, like all of that is like, it's tasty, it's yummy, it's like the thing
Mhm.
that I'm craving. And so I get it. And you're right, there are some people who are like just very singularly focused, and maybe the one or two episodes, one or two editions might be right for them,
Mhm.
whereas for the creative, that the artist that really wants to expand beyond where they're at, this is a perfect way to get inspiration. I mean, sometimes I'm just like, I should buy 2 copies because I just want to cut some of them up and take all of the bits and pieces of the gorgeous color. Like, I don't mean to destroy your magazine, but that's why I said 2 copies. Because
Well, it's
like,
not destroying if you're using it for creative fodder. That's okay.
yeah, creative
Yeah.
fodder. That's a really good way to put it. But like, it's just always like I open it up and I'm just like, plus the texture of the paper is just perfect. You definitely have that right weight and satin, not glossy. It's just a beautiful magazine. I really do absolutely love it. I know I'm gushing over it a lot, but there are very few magazines that I'll purchase at this point in my life. And Uppercase is one of them for sure.
So much.
So I'm kind of curious where you see the future of Uppercase, of magazines, of where we're going to be going with art and art trends.
Mm-hmm. Well, the future of my particular magazine is I'll keep going. I'm on issue 59 and I'm planning to get to issue 100. That's my goal. I'll be in my early 60s by then, and it seems like a good milestone. I'll probably keep going after that because what else could I do? But I like having issue 100 as my goal in mind for the magazine. And then the encyclopedias, I've committed. I want to do all 26 letters, so that'll be
Yeah.
on my plate. And I'm working on one that's coming out next year called Notions, and it's about like sewing notions and ephemera and memorabilia related to sewing and inventors who invented notions. And it's really fun because I love sewing. That's like my zone of creativity. So I'm working on that, and then I have ideas for the next encyclopedias that are coming out in the next couple of years. So that's my general future ideas. And then now that I'm moved into this beautiful new space, I want to use it to kind of expand my mind because I have more space. So I want to have a place where I can do my own hands-on creativity. I want to paint. I want to get back into like the tactileness of making a mess and having color and stuff, which I couldn't do when I was like in my previous place or just working in my home. I didn't have enough room. So that's something I want to do, is explore my own creative self. I haven't done that since I was in art college, where I used to paint and draw and illustrate all the time, and I got out of that. I want to get back into and I plan on having some creative courses about more of the practical side of being a creative in business. So I'm planning on filming that here with my nice little backdrop. So that's like the immediate future for Uppercase. And for creativity in general, right now I'm seeing a lot of people talking about AI and ChatGPT and Midjourney and all these devices that you can outsource your creativity to. But I don't plan on going down that route. Um, I have an article in the next issue coming out where an artist is writing about it specifically, but I think we can use those sorts of technologies as impetus to really hone in on what it is to be a human artist and to create our own work and to kind of reap the benefits of being a creative person and going through your own creative process and going through the struggle of coming up with ideas and the joy and fulfillment of putting something out in the world that you've created from yourself. So I'm hoping that's where the future of creativity goes, is that we just like say, oh, so what? This is like a little trend of AI and whatever, get a computer to do something for you. But I think at the essence, humans need to express themselves. And I hope that that's where we're going to turn towards, instead of just pursuing some algorithm type thing that's going to turn out something that looks the same as any other computer could turn out.
I noticed that they all, as fascinating as AI art is and Midjourney and all of that, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not angry about it. It is what it is, and I'm just going to ignore it and continue to pursue physical things that I can touch. But it does look a lot alike. And once you recognize the look of it, you realize how computer generated it is. So maybe there's a place for that, just like when photography came out and artists were like, it's going to ruin our career because now a picture can take somebody's portrait, But photography just became another means of creativity and use, and artists still make art. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm hoping that we'll just continue our need of like this hands-on touching. And not only that, but buying things that we can see and touch and feel, because that's a lot more exciting than something that's all just ones and zeros.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I'm going to maintain my focus anyway. Like, and as long as I maintain my focus, I know there's other people who are going to feel the same way as me, and that'll be fine for our niche
Yeah,
of
for sure.
like analog stuff. But when I think like I've been doing this for a while, and when I first started out with the magazine, like the iPad was the big thing that came out, and everyone was saying, "Oh, can you put your magazine on the iPad? I want to have a digital version of the magazine." And I was like, "No, you can't. I can't do it. Like I'm just one person. I'm a print designer. I put things on paper. That's what I'm trained to do. That's what I love doing. Uppercase is about tactile things. Like, no, I'm not going to do a digital iPad version." And I just stuck to that. And that was a great business decision because people can't get it digitally, so they have to buy it. And they're more willing to pay the actual cost for the physical item than they would be for a digital version of that thing.
Right.
And then the other thing that came out was like Procreate. And so that's a really interesting tool to use on the iPad. And at first, I think a lot of art just looked like, oh, that looks like someone did it on Procreate. But now that people have been using it for a while, they're finding how to make art that's unique to them that might happen to be on this technical tool. But I think now it's less likely that you'd say, oh, like that was just made on Procreate, or just like, 20 years ago, you could say, oh, that was done on Adobe Illustrator or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So perhaps I guess at a point that will be like with AI generated art, that there could be a way of injecting more human personality from that, the author of it. But I don't know. I'm not really interested in looking at that. But so seeing things like technology changing in the past, 20 years, there's trends, and I can see it reflected back in what people are submitting to the magazine. But as the curator of the magazine, I can decide what I'm putting in or not. So I'll always be focused on the human made by hand, tactile, things that you can
Love it.
have in a whole.
Anything you can touch,
Yeah.
that's what belongs in the magazine.
Yeah. And ideas that you can't touch.
And ideas that you can't touch. I love that. That's really cool. What advice would you give to anyone if they were considering this as a path of entrepreneurship, of starting some sort of publication? Is it worth it? Would you recommend it even?
Well, I would recommend doing what I'm doing because it's great. I love it. But a unique set of skills that's making it work for me. But I've over the years, people have emailed me the question and such, and so I kind of had a canned response. But the thing is that you have to have a tolerance for risk if you're going to do like a publication, right? Because there's no guarantee that it's going to be able to support itself, and so you have to be able to manage financial risk very well to keep something like this going. You have to be good with numbers. You have to be good with looking at like the real practicalities of like, what does it actually cost to produce something physical? Not even just a magazine, but any product you're going to put out there. What are the real costs? What are the peripheral costs that you're forgetting about? Because those are really, really important, right? What is like labor and time costs? Like there's so much you need to consider before you just do something like a magazine, right? So yeah, I think that's the important thing, is really look at it as a business to make sure that it's not just like a whim. It has to be really committed. Of course, you can do a one-off project or something, and not everything needs to be a business or for profit or anything. But if you're going to do a magazine, I think the nature of the magazine is that you're committing to doing it on a regular basis, and you're committing to having a relationship with your readers, and it's a big commitment. So.
And to learn how to market.
Yeah.
Well, that goes for all businesses, but
does.
I love that shifted things for you. And all right. Well, obviously everyone can find you at Uppercase, but they can also find you on your personal account, right?
My personal account?
Do you have
no,
Instagram?
like online. I'm uppercasemagazine.com and uppercase mag on Instagram.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
No,
awesome.
I don't have like any personal accounts. I just don't have them.
but if somebody gets on your email list, they're going to get personal love notes from you for your newsletter.
Well, the nature of Uppercase being a one-woman show is that it's all personal. So
yes,
you'll find me in those places.
Well, I actually am inspired by that because I was just having a discussion. I have two people who help me with my business, and I've had a lot of help with some of that writing in the past. And I'm like, you know what? I think the part that's missing is me. And I need to come back to that basic. So that's what I've been working on myself as well. So you're right on the money about that. And I'm assuming easy to just go to uppercasemagazine.com.
Yeah.
And sign up for a subscription. It's quarterly. Purchase. I know that I went in and when I discovered, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that I discovered Uppercase, and I bought some back issues. So are there still back issues to purchase?
Yeah, there are some. Yeah, those are available too on the website. And I have like some bundles where if you buy like a bundle of them at a time, you save quite a bit off of them. And Likewise with the encyclopedias, if you want to buy one or two, they're available, or if you want to buy the full stack of books that are there, I've got a big bundle of, I think there's 8 or 9 books in the bundle available right now. So yeah, those are all there.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I
print a
love
lot.
it.
So
And you do have, do you still have the little kids version, like for the youth?
yeah, so I have an occasional publication. I've done 3 volumes. It's called Little You, and it's the offspring of uppercase. And so it's not for kids, but it's about children's related industries. So like children's books, illustration for kids, toy design, surface pattern for kids' fashions, and creativity inspired by young people. It's very sweet. It's inspired by being a mom.
Yeah.
So Finley was my editor at large. So we did 3 issues together. And it's a very small, it's like 4 by 6 inches and 200 and some pages. So it's like a little brick. Yeah, so they're very sweet. And a portion of those sales go to UNICEF to support children's charities. Yeah, so those are available too. I haven't done a new one in a while. I'm kind of on a break now. My son's a teenager, so we're not looking at all like the cute little children's stuff anymore. So I guess we both have moved on for a while, but we were talking about it the other day if we want to do another volume, and I think we might someday.
Well, teenagers are still technically children, so maybe there's a teen version out there that's possible.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, I've got enough projects right now that I'm committed to, but
There
it's
you
nice
go.
to have another potential outlet for curating and such, right? So
No, I have to put the ideas on the shelf because there's always like 10 more of them that come. Okay, so before we end here, I'm going to ask you my favorite question that I ask everyone at the end. What is your big audacious dream?
I'm living it. I'm living my dream
Living
right
it.
now. Yeah, like just having moved into this beautiful studio that I purchased through my hard-earned efforts from the past 20 years. That's awesome. I'm living that dream to just like be my own boss, be in charge of what I'm doing with my time and creating stuff that I absolutely love and being surrounded by things that are, beautiful and pretty and inspiring. So yeah, I've done it. So
Awesome.
I don't have a new one to superimpose on that. I'm just gonna like enjoy this experience and continue working really, really hard to, pay it off.
There you go. Edition 100,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, Janine.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation a lot. It's nice to chat with you.
Yep.